Welcome to Life Lessons, segment 47, and we are in the book of Deuteronomy, Chumash Dvarim, the fourth one. We had Dvarim, and by Hanan, Akev, now we're in the fourth one called Re'eh. What does it mean, Re'eh, in Hebrew? It means see, see. So let's read the first verse. So the first verse says as follows. Hashem, Moshe Rabbeinu, Moses, is giving over a message of God to all the Jewish people. And he says, Re'eh, see, Anochi, I am, Noten Lifnechem, I'm giving you today, Bracha u'klala, blessing and a curse. And he continues by saying, the blessing, if you would listen to the commandments of God that I command you today. And the curse, if you don't listen to the commandments of God, and you'll go off the way that I have commanded you to go worship other gods that you don't know. But the beginning here is, see, I am giving you a blessing and the opposite of blessing. So first of all, what's today? Which day is he talking about? And if it's talking about what happened before they entered, as they entered Israel, it says there was one mountain where they said all the blessing, and another mountain where they had all the opposite of the blessing. So that wasn't now. So that's telling you something that's going to be later on. But here we're talking about just before Moshe is about to pass on, and he's instructing the Jewish people, encouraging them to stay to the core, to stay truthful, to keep on the mission, not to get loose, not to lose ourselves about the ultimate goal, what needs to happen here. But so he's addressing them here in this, see, I am giving you blessing and the opposite of blessing. When the simple meaning was trying to tell them, you should know that's in your hands everything. One important principle in Judaism is free choice. There's a whole argument, and there's been many discussions by philosophers and others. Is there free choice or not? Or let's put it another way. Could you believe in God and still say that there's free choice? Obviously, those that have a hard time in believing in an almighty, believing in a creator, have no problem to come and say that you are in charge of your destiny, you can do whatever you want. You want to live, live. You want to kill yourself, do whatever you want. But if you believe in God, all of a sudden, if I believe in God, so I come with a very important conclusion. The conclusion that I come with is that God did not create a world for no reason whatsoever. If God created something, means there's a purpose. So if I believe that there is a first being, and this first being created the world, he created the world because there's a purpose why there's a world. So when I start thinking about this and I realize, why was I created? What am I here in this world? It's because this is God's world. And if this is God's world, means he has a purpose for me being in this world. To make it better, to be an influence for others, to be a role model, to bring up a next generation. And this is a very important point. Because if I don't have a set of beliefs, then my responsibilities then are made up responsibilities. And what I mean by made up responsibilities, then these responsibilities is according to what the society thinks what's right and what's wrong. So what was okay maybe 50 years ago may not be okay today. And what we all think it's okay now, who knows if that's going to be okay in 50 years from now or down the road. But when I have a set of beliefs, a set of principles, and I go by those principles, then I realize that there is a purpose and there's a reason, and then I have to be responsible, and I can't just say, that's the way it is. No, there's no such thing that's the way it is. I'm put here in this world to make a statement, to create, to change, to help out. We find a lot of times where people say, I do not want to bring another generation into this world. Okay? But from the point of view of responsibility, if we think about there's a creator, and this creator wanted that there should be a world, and we should help out in making this world a better world, then it demands from us a responsibility not just to care about ourselves, but to bring in another generation into this world. And all that starts with the idea that I believe that there is a God in the world. When I believe there is a God in the world, I realize all of a sudden there's a set of principles. If not, God didn't have to create this world. He created the world, and if He created the world, and He's God, so there's certain rules that are God's rules. And He gave it to us that we should be able to follow those rules. And the idea of that is to be able to make this world a better world. It's interesting how this is based on some of the Talmudic statements about the desires, or if we could say such a thing, how God wanted about this world. So it says that God looks on each one of us as a partner. It's like almost it's written, He created a world that is unfinished. Why? Because He wants us to finish it. Many of us sometimes ask, well, if there's a God in this world, why is there crime? Why is there bad people? Why is there sicknesses? Why all these things? That only brings in, this question only brings in the very important answer. Because God believes that we have to make those choices. It's not, He didn't create robots. He created us that we should be thinking people and do the right thing. And this is what He's saying over here. Moshe is saying, see, I am talking here for God. That God, with the word of I, and the word I over here in Hebrew is Anochi. This is the same word mentioned in the Ten Commandments. The first word in the Ten Commandments is, I am your God. I. There's only one I. The I is God. They say a famous story. In the olden days, what they called in the shtetl, in the small villages in Poland, and it was late at night, and happens to be there was still in the little shtetl there was the rabbi in the city was still up very late at night. There was no electricity in those days. He had a few candles and was still sitting and learning, studying late at night. And somebody wandered and came very late and looking a place for to stay. He sees in one of the streets there's some lights, so he realized candles coming out. So he realized, I'll go knock on the door. So he comes and is knocking on the door, and the rabbi is sitting alone. And he says, "Who's there?" The person answered, "I am." I. So the rabbi says, I? If that's only God, I, then you could use a window too. And the point of that is that he's trying to tell him, the person realized, says, the ultimate I is God. That's the ultimate I. So, Anochi, I am your God. This is what God said by the Ten Commandments. So here, this verse over here, in chapter 11, verse 26 in the book of Deuteronomy, says, Re'ei Anochi, see, I am giving you today the blessing, and what he says over the curse, the opposite of blessing. Besides the word over here, giving, see, there's a few points here. See, I giving to you today This word today means a very important point. No matter what, every day we have to look on it as today. The message of God, it's not just once a year, from time to time. This is an ongoing thing. In the language that we used to here in the United States, it is 24/7. All the time. And how is it, re'eh, you should see. In the last few segments, we went into this discussion, the difference between hearing and listening and seeing. Here again, we see the word seeing, and Moshe touching about seeing, because what we spoke till last few times, that there is an advantage of listening. The advantage of listening, it gives you the time to digest. When you see something, it could be sometimes very overpowering. You saw something, and then it's gone. You saw it for a second, it's gone. You listen, you understood, and then you could, like almost as we say sometimes, I see it, I understand. But then when we understand something, then we could move on to the idea of seeing. What is really the idea of seeing? The idea of seeing is to have a vision. To have a vision. In the simple level that some of us, and even in psychology books, they also talk a lot about this, is that when a person, they conduct their lives in a visual way, in other words, that things are so clear, it's like almost when you make a decision, and for a lot of us, when we're in a dilemma, not even a dilemma, you have to make a decision. Comes a point, you're delaying, but here comes a time, you have to make the decision. For a lot of us is we don't know what are the consequences of our decision. If we would know what the consequence will be of our decision, then I believe that quite a lot of us would be very careful with what they decide. But a lot of times is, the person is pondering, what should I do? What should I do next? Should I open this business? Should I, let's say, move here? Should I do this? So many different things, what I should do. And then the person starts thinking, well, I'll consult, I'll ask, but the bottom line is the individual as an adult has to decide. They make that decision and with the hope that they did the right decision. There's something much deeper than all that. And that's what the idea that's being mentioning here, and that's the whole idea of the Torah, the 5 books of Moses, what they're trying to teach us. That when we know what is expected from us, that's already a powerful vision that should help us in any decision that we make. When an individual is unfortunately confused about what they want, about who they are, then obviously it's going to be very hard. But if things are clear, why? Because the individual has a vision. They know what they want. They know what it's expected. They know what I have to do. Then any decision is in that world, in the world of that vision. And that's exactly what is happening over here. They are after 40 years of the desert. They had all their ups and downs. This is after Mount Sinai, after coming out of the Exodus, and now they're about to enter Israel. This is where the ultimate goal. So after all the challenges, the vision is becoming clear. Weeks ago, segments ago, we talked about the story of the spies. At that time, all of a sudden there was a confusion. They come back, they give a bad report. Everyone gets confused. All of a sudden, the vision stalled. God says in the beginning, very clear what's going to be. I'm going to take you out of Egypt. You are slaves in Egypt. I'm going to take you out of Egypt to freedom. going to bring you to Mount Sinai to give you the Ten Commandments, the Torah. And from there, I'm taking you to the Promised Land. So you're coming out of slavery. You are receiving the book of laws, what is demanded. And then, with all that, you're heading into the Promised Land because that's where you're going to settle and that's where you're going to make something for what I'm asking you. Somehow, coming out of slavery worked out. Receiving the commandments worked out. But the day after began the problems. The implementation of all this began all the problems. For a while, if a person doesn't have the vision, and when the complications begins, it's very easy to give up and to say, I don't see it. I don't see an end to this. I don't see a way out. I don't see a clear path. But God is saying, see. You need to see. You can't just imagine. See what I'm asking from you. See. And then when you start seeing, you are connecting with the eye, with the real eye. And then it is giving. A lot of times in the Torah, we find different expressions. And all the expressions become very important. Sometimes there's an interesting expression sometimes. God says, I sold you my Torah. Discussing the idea, most of us know, God gave us the Torah on Mount Sinai. But in other places, there's an expression, I sold you my Torah. Well, wait a second. How are we paying for this sale? By performing. God says, you want to have a relationship with me? This is what I am asking from you. So I am selling you the Torah. I'm not looking for cash. I'm looking for good deeds. That's one way it's described. But sometimes it's described the idea of a gift. This idea of a gift puts it in a high level. Because as in Kabbalah especially, they talk a lot about this. When a person gives a gift, means that you like somebody. We don't see too many people that going around just giving out gifts just like this. You're going to a wedding because you were invited, so you're giving a gift. And why were you invited to the wedding? Because you know the people. And you have a feeling for the people that you're going to. You're invited to a birthday party, so you feel to give a gift to the individual. But we don't see somebody walking down on Main Street with a bag of gifts. Who wants a gift? And start handing out gifts. Maybe the government is doing that. But anyways, so what does it mean? You're giving a gift because you like somebody. So here, this is what the verse is saying. See, God, noising, giving, looking on the whole idea, what he's giving, because it's not I came as a dictator and I am telling you, you have to do this and this. No, I am giving to you. I want you to see, you should rise to the level of seeing that what you have is a gift, not a burden. Sometimes we get lost. And even if we were educated properly, and we had, thank God, good parents, we went to good schools, but sometimes in life, when we have sometimes some kind of a crisis and we have to deal with situations, and we feel maybe there's too much pressure, we don't know how to deal with the situation. But when, and in that whole discussion, sometimes you could feel, you know what? To be religious, to be observant may feel like a burden. and you look sometimes on your neighbors that maybe are not following any religion whatsoever and say, look on the freedom that they have. They can do whatever they want. But if you think a little bit, that's not real freedom. And here what God is trying to tell us, rise to the occasion of seeing. And when you rise to the occasion of seeing, you will see it is I that I am giving you. When? Not from time to time. Today. Every day. Bracha uklala. The blessing and the opposite of blessing. What is he trying to tell us with that? I'm not imposing. I am giving you free choice. But I'm being nice to you to tell you that you should know that if you choose the other way, that's not a blessing. But it's up to us. It's up to us what path are we going to be choosing. So this idea of turning our way of life into a visual is something very important, what he's talking about here. And I once heard a very interesting story that will help us a little bit to understand that, how sometimes when we use vision, it helps us to be stronger in what we believe. I'm sure everyone is familiar, for many, this is going back to the 80s, when the Soviet Union, they were tough, and many of the Jews that were called refusniks were arrested, those that wanted to go to Israel, those that wanted to spread Judaism. One of the people that were arrested, and they really went after him, is a very well known, Nathan Sharansky. And he ended up to 9 years in Siberia, and most of the times in a confined room, no bed, no chair. And what they're trying to do, that he should come out mentally disturbed from the situation. That's what they wanted from him. They didn't succeed. But here's an interesting story. At one time, one of the guards comes in, and Sharansky turns to him and says, "Don't disturb me. I'm in the middle of playing chess." The guard says, okay, test himself. What we wanted all these years, that he should mentally, it's finally working. And he left him alone. What Sharansky was doing, when he was a young kid, he was trained to be a chess player. And he worked on himself. He came to a point before he was arrested that he would able to sit with 4 or 5 different games and go from one place to another. Became a genius in this game. Now, he's put in jail, in confinement. And besides a little book of Psalms that he hid in his pocket, and they didn't find it. It remained with him, and he came out with that. Was, by the way, those that are familiar, was thanks to the efforts of President Reagan in the 80s that he was successful in getting him out. There's that famous picture how he's crossing then from East Germany to West Germany and to the hands of the Americans, and then later he went to Israel. But anyways, he finds himself, he's bored, no books to read, and he's thinking to himself, how am I exactly going to survive this? So in his imagination, he's playing chess. And it's like almost he visualized it as he's sitting in front of a board of chess. And now here you're going to need 2 people to play. So you visualize the one side and the other side. And he kept them back and forth. And so many things were created in his mind, moves. Later on when he came out, he played with one of the champions of the world, chess, and he won over him. It was amazing because what was he able to do? And he explained once, because he visualized as he's sitting in front of a chess game, a board, and moving the pieces. So God comes and tells to each one of us, I know things are hard, but I want you to visualize this relationship. Put it in the form of seeing, not just you hear. You're moving on to a new stage. And when you put yourself of seeing, then you will realize the I, then you will realize the giving, I am giving, and then you will realize it's today. And in other words, it says over here, lifneichem, inwardly, that it's not something external, it's inwardly. Many times a person could behave and may very look good from the outside, but from the inside we have no idea. So he says, lifneichem, inwardly, today, the blessing and the opposite of blessing. That kind of a statement over here. And as the portion moves on to other subjects, it puts us in that special connection with the Almighty, and that should help us that in everything that we do, and sometimes when we face a little bit of a challenge, we have to place ourselves into to see that God is watching over us and He's helping us, He's giving us all the blessings, and we should all be blessed with all the good blessings. Thank you.